Good afternoon, church. Good afternoon, beautiful people. I don't know why Tinu had to be the one to introduce me. I'm a non-executive director on the board of Zest. It's the new digital bank for Standard Bank, Stanbic IBTC in Nigeria, and I head Group Internal Control for Stanbic IBTC Bank. I just thought to quickly clarify that. Thank you for having me. It's been a beautiful session. I wrote so much, and I was nodding so much when she was speaking. I think it's a good time to say we should give a round of applause to our pastorate, our leadership, the people who put this together. We always say that if we develop enough everywhere we associate, we will really be leading. Because when you read the Bible, we should be the head of all organizations, right? That's what God said to us. He said we'll be the head and not the tail. And some of us, we just think it's all about prayers, it's all about fasting, it's all about paying your tithes. But sometimes you need to put in the work, you need to get the tips, you need to get the principles and the power. You need to get the learnings, and you need to be healthy. And if you have a church that thinks of these holistic things to make you strong and exceptional, I think you're in the right place. And I think that it's a good time to say thank you, Pastor and Pastor Mrs. May God continue to strengthen your ministry. Father, Lord, we want to go briefly into your word. We pray that you choose what we say. We pray for the spirit and grace of execution. We pray that at the end of this, we will be exceptional in our careers, and we will develop in a way that people will know that we are not of this world. Thank you, Jesus. So my topic is thriving in career and personal development. I sent my slides. I don't know if they'll be able to show that, but I'll run regardless. Why do we need to always talk to women about careers? Why do we need to share these tips? It's because we are not where we should be, but we are on a journey. And if you think that all the things we do, International Women's Day, celebrating the girl child, special education for women, it's made a lot of advancement. About 8 years ago, we had only 8% of CEOs in the world as women. Today, we have 31%. Still lower than the men, but you can imagine how far we've come. So we need to do more work to get women where they belong. Only 23% of the executives around the world are women. You know, we have a lot more as men. So there's a lot of statistics out there. Only 29% in organizations are senior management. And, you know, the Fortune 500 companies that have CEOs as women, 32 of them, they are better performed than the ones with CEOs as men. So it's not because we are not competent. In fact, 36% for education, we have 41% women to 36% today. These are Gallup statistics on the internet, guys. So it's not like we are not qualified. It's not because we don't know, we don't have the capabilities, capacity, education, training. It's because we need to learn to show up differently. Because when I started, you know, we started with something that looked a bit like feminism. Then when we realized where the world was going with that, we dropped it and decided to focus on the message, right? And the message is that the man shows up and there's an assumption that he's great. Correct? The woman shows up and has to prove that she's great. And it's not a problem, guys. If you notice the initial women that were leaders, I think we also didn't handle it well. So the need to have these conversations about thriving with women is helping to shape us so that, he said something beautiful. He said emotions are good, don't leave the emotions. But you know how to manage it and use it to your advantage. So I'm going to quickly run. When I was preparing for this, I told Tinu, I think I sent my slides 2 a.m. I wasn't going to do any slides. I wanted to talk about Esther because I was coming to talk to women. And I wanted to talk about how Esther had focus, had empathy, was selfless, right? Did the work. Remember, she fasted for 3 days before she took the courage to speak. And she didn't fast alone. She got people who fasted with her. And that was all the message I was bringing today. That as a woman, you can excel, you can change the world just by being like Esther, right? Because she sought God. She sought men of God to join her. She did the work. She had the courage. And she didn't think of herself. She thought of her people. So she was a great tool in the hand of God. And that is who we are in the workplace, professionally. God has placed each and every one of us there for something. And then God said to me, talk about Joseph. And I didn't understand why, but I think I do now after listening to the first two speakers. Why would Joseph be the person we talk about excelling professionally and in our career? The first thing is because Joseph's life had a lot of challenges that were beyond him, but it didn't stop the glory. It still happened. And I remember one time I was teaching my teenagers. I teach teenagers in RCCG, and I told them, oh, we're going to talk about Joseph. I've talked about Joseph, but not in this light. And he said, oh, that's the one that never did anything wrong. And I said, no. There's nobody God used that didn't have a weakness. Nobody. Everyone had a weakness. Sometimes when you look at the Bible, you're almost jealous of David. How did he do so much havoc and still had such grace? How? So Joseph also, when you start the journey, and that's to tell us that you may have started this career professionally, you have taken some wrong steps, you can always walk back from it. When I started, I was a rebel. I was in a contact center environment. If you know how that is, it's like secondary school, but I had the sharpest tongue ever. So when everybody complains and the bosses come, I'm the one to say what everybody's feeling. You guess I was marked, right? I was. It took someone to say, come, let me mentor you. The way you are going, they will not promote you. You're too brilliant for this rubbish. What is this aluta you carried on your head? Is this why you are here? And the person held my hand to the extent that sometimes I want to talk at meetings, she will step on me and say, shut up. Are you the only one that saw it? I was a freedom fighter. But you know, freedom fighters don't get bored. There's too much work up there for this acrimony nonsense. There's too much work. So Joseph started by having a gift. Everyone has a gift. That's my first message. Ephesians 4:11 says he gives gifts to people. Romans 12:6 says, in his grace, God has given us different gifts for doing different things. Everyone has a gift. The second lesson from Joseph is that your gift can make or mar you. Joseph was Olufunke last born when I was growing up. He was already resourceful. He used to report back to his father, but he had zero wisdom. He will report the one they sent him and the one they didn't send him. And you know that the way he was born, there's already a story. His father loved his mother so much, but they made him marry a wrong person to get to the woman he loved. And then his mother didn't even have a child early. I don't know if you remember that Leah got her servants to give Jacob children so she could be ahead of Joseph's mother. So Joseph was the second to the last born, but the first child of the preferred wife. There's already jealousy. So where are you coming out of? When you're still talking about village people. Did you know how Joseph ended up? He came out of that strife. Do you know what it means to have 10 older siblings that hate you? Not for anything, but because you were born with privilege. The coat of many colors son is because that was a spoiled child. He was the loved child. His mother was the preferred wife. So When you are in that kind of situation, you need wisdom to hide your head. He didn't have that. He was showing up himself. He came with the first dream. He said, all my elder brothers, the dream, when he told it, they said, so we will bow to you. I won't go. I'm sure you all know the story of Joseph. Go to Genesis 37. He said, we will bow to you. Shut up, get out. You think you're better than us. This boy didn't stop. He came with the second dream. Sun, moon, 10 stars. The father said, are you okay? Me, your mother, we will bow to you. He set himself up. So the first advice to women is don't set yourself up. You are great. Don't show up. Don't make yourself a target. Don't spend your work life or career life doing deliverance. Do not be acrimonious. Don't look for trouble. Don't take your grace for granted. See, the same grace you and I have, you can use your own to fight enemies. And someone will use their own to become president. Accelerating. Did you see what he said about don't quarrel? About when you are doing business with people. That's one of the things the enemy brings. It's also one of the reasons why women don't grow. Why? Because in the workplace, when a man bangs the table, they say it's assertive. When a woman bangs the table, she's aggressive. Understand. So watch yourself. Understand your weaknesses and manage them. Don't show up in a way that everybody will be worried about you. That gift you have, it can make or mar you. It can be the reason you are a target. Two things around here. God's dreams for you can make others around you uncomfortable. So don't speak too loudly. You say, well, I remember when I interviewed for my first job, and I met they used to call them chief then. He said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I said, on your seat. Oh my God. I said, on your feet. He said, wow. I said, yes. He said, tell me why. I said, I'm very smart. I was just talking rubbish. You know how you think back and you're like, Jesus, you love me. My career, God loves me. What? Lack of wisdom, zero. The guy looked at me and he smiled, The second point is, sometimes the struggle in the career is not you, it's generational. We don't have time, but let me tell you something. Remember how Jacob got that blessing? Do you remember? He tricked his father. There's a curse on that, And when they pretended to kill Joseph, what did they kill? A goat. What skin did Jacob use to pretend to his father that he was Esau? A goat. So Joseph was probably fighting some generational curse. Because the truth is, you can be the last child and not be so hated. It's possible. So that one was there. Oh no, my system is off. So, sorry. Is it showing? Oh. Yeah, so the gift itself, you need to learn how to manage it. The second question, and I think someone said it, is how does God see you? You must be clear about how God sees you before you determine on a career path. It's important you know, is this where I should be? Joseph came through for this message because Genesis 39:2 says, and the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. He was still a servant here. He was just a servant manager, but he was a prosperous man to God. He wasn't yet successful in the way we see people in the world. So from the beginning, ask God, and back to his point, that the spirituality is the foundation, is fundamental to this career and personal development. God, how and where do you see me? You must do the work. If you need to fast, you must fast. If you need to call elders or people to join hands with you to ask God this question, are you in the right place? How does God see you? Galatians 6:9 says, and let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season will we reap and faint not. The only reason you will not faint is because you already know how God sees you. He says, I'm prosperous. So in this business, I'm good. In this career, I'm on the right path, even if they don't promote me in 1 year. The next point for me is to know your values. And that's why Joseph really came through. 2 things make you succeed in the professional or career world. Your faith. And your faith is who you are, your person, and your work. Now, your faith, because we are Christians, it stems from God. But remember, you have to display it. You know, today, criminals, the people you think are really bad, when they have companies, they will list the qualities of the CEO they want. They say, I want someone with integrity. I'm like, do you have integrity? Even people without integrity are looking for a certain kind of people in leadership. You must have strength of character. You must be able to communicate effectively. You must love the people. Empathy is coming out again. You must be diligent. You must be visionary. You must be able to carry people along. You must have knowledge. You must understand easily, or at least be able to learn. And I mean, you must be teachable. So, when people are looking for those qualities, do they find it in us? Let's look at Joseph again. Joseph, for his father, was accountable. He was already bookkeeping for his father. He used to give records. So it was like an admin staff as the youngest child. That's how he used to add the ofofo or aproko that he used to do. When he got to Potiphar's house, after they sold him, he got humble actually. You know, when they were selling him, chapter 37 doesn't talk about the fact that he begged. But if you go to chapter 42, you see that when they were now selling Joseph, he begged. He became humble, but they didn't listen at that point. When he got to Potiphar's house, he was a slave, just a slave. But he was so diligent. I'm trying to see if I can find the words that were used. They said he was excellent in his work, and they made him the manager of the slaves. So he started to administer Potiphar's home. That is what you need in a workplace. You need to stand out. So we know you are a Christian. We know you have integrity. We know you are passionate. We know we can trust you. Do the work. You need to stand out. There are some places that when I want to hire, Christians, we are not still showing up in the workplace. Honestly, I go to Redeem. When I'm interviewing, I don't necessarily hire Redeem people. But you know, there's a church where when I'm hiring, I look for them. Who knows the church? Who? Samadeyemi. Have you been to that church? This is how they do services. This thing you are doing here. They teach diligence. They teach passion. They teach exceptionalism. They teach knowledge. We need to develop ourselves more to take over our position in even the organizations that we're in. And women a lot more than the average person. So know your values and do the work. Joseph had integrity. He was hardworking. He was trusted. So in Potiphar's house, he was already a manager. And then because he was a good-looking man, we know what happened with Potiphar's wife. I went to study that. How can you try to sleep with the wife of your master and you end up in jail? In those days, the consequence for that was actually death. The only reason he landed in jail was possibly because of his good works or because Potiphar knew that his wife was not a very trustworthy human being. He should have been killed, but he ended up in jail. But did you see how they described his work in jail again? This is the consistency, I'm telling you. Working with his father, working in Potiphar's house. Then he gets to jail. If you read that verse, it says, the jail guards, the masters, they no longer needed to supervise his work. So they kept increasing his responsibility. So even though he was a prisoner, he was working like an employee with oversight over other prisoners. That is, again, good work coming through. So don't let anybody deceive you. It's not the politics. It's not Godfather. It is your work, your brand, your showing up, your consistency that's going to get you where you are. There are a number of people, and I think I'm proud to say I'm one of them. I've never taken my CV anywhere. My first job is the only place I applied. After that, someone will say, please bring Olufunke here. We want Olufunke here. I have never. All my work was by referral. And he mentioned it. You see, when Joseph got to become the vice prime minister, in Egypt. That is still the biggest nation in the world, I hope you know. He did not apply for the job. He was referred because he interpreted dream for 2 people in prison. That's the pro bono work he was talking about. So your good work would always open doors for you. What does Proverbs 22:29 says? Who has it? It says, show me a man who is diligent in his work. Right? He will stand before kings, right? He will not bow before mean men. So what the Bible is saying is, be diligent, and I will take you to great places. I won't subject you to people who will demonize you or make you subject to principles that are not of God. They will just put you in one corner and say, this one is work. And they will treat you like that. Don't think they will treat everybody else like that. You have to stand for what you believe. But please show up so that it will be difficult to discard you. And that is why the story of Joseph is important. He was faithful to God. Now, some people, I read someone that gave a testimony that when life was hard, he now got a sugar mommy. It was God's solution to the hardness. Imagine if Joseph thought like that. Would he have ever become a prime minister? Awala Anumi, Oloremi, that is not God. Start to think of the help you have in your life. What is it taking from you? Any help or support that takes Jesus from you, you don't need it. You will not get to your destination. Because Joseph got there, but he was faithful. Potiphar's wife, do you know how he would have enjoyed the short-term joy to the long-term glory that God was keeping for him? So the faithfulness, the grace, the forgiveness, the other thing that prevents us from moving forward is that we don't forgive. I think women more. Let's talk about it. We don't forgive. Just imagine you are the prime minister. The brothers that sold you into slavery, they are at your mercy. Some people will deal with them and write it on Facebook. God delivered my enemies into my hands. You can take your pound of flesh, but you will lose the glory ahead. It is important that you divorce yourself from that negative feeling, from the desire to. Sometimes the bosses who hurt us the most give us the greatest skills. Have you worked before and you're uncomfortable and you're on edge because this person is picking on me? That is when you hone your greatest crafts. Because you just cross all your eyes and dot your T's. You will do something you want to send, you say, so they have their roles. Of course, it's not healthy to be there for too long. But every battle, every challenge is a training ground. And you must recognize and understand it for what it is. If Joseph was not sold into slavery, what will he be? He will still remain the favorite child of an average man. That was all he would be. An ordinary, loved child of an average man. So that slavery was critical to his journey. And as a Christian, you need to start seeing challenges like that. What do you now do, this self-development? Let me tell you the difference. Please, someone should tell me how I'm doing with time. I'm trying to put everything together so that use your gift. Okay, use your gift. You know why? Joseph could have interpreted that dream and not been the prime minister. Do you know? You know. He interpreted the dream. Then he gave solution. Extra mile. You cannot succeed in a career if you don't go the extra mile. You have to be different. There are many people earning salaries. Why should the promotion go to you? You have to stand out. You have to give more. So imagine that he interpreted the dream and said, okay, there'll be 7 years of drought and 7 years of famine, and then 7 years we will chop well, 7 years we will not, and then he will go. They'll still be looking for a solution provider. But he said, this is how we'll do it. He had strategy. Do you think he matured in prison? Some of you have jumped from one career to the other, one business to the other. That boy left home at 17. He was sold at 17. For 13 years, he was between slavery and prison. He was disappointed, remember. When he interpreted dream for 2 people inside the prison, he said one of you would, those people, I think they were there for treason, for trying to poison the king and the Pharaoh, and they were doing investigations and they threw them both in. He said, you will go back, you will die. He told the one that will survive, he said, when they call you back, please remember me. Was he remembered? That's when you miss promotion. You don't know. That's when you miss the next level. Have you trained? You do your boss's job. Your boss will go. They'll bring a new boss. You will teach him or her, right? They will still not give you the job. It happens. But it's all for a reason. But God still said you will go somewhere. And so there was another dream. And Pharaoh needed an interpreter. I said, oh, when I was in jail, this was 2 years after Joseph said, please remember me. Don't put your faith in man. Always ask God for remembrance. When you think you've been passed over, don't blame the person. He's just a tool. It's an instrument. And an instrument that fails you today can bring you back tomorrow. Ask God for remembrance. Because he then said, oh, when I was in prison, there was one guy that interpreted a dream. And everything he said came through. Say, bring this guy for me. At that point, Joseph, you can see the promotion. He was no longer operating at Potiphar's level. He was not at Pharaoh's level, right? That's the pinnacle of the career we are talking about now. But do you see how we got there? When my children went to the university at 17, all my salary was tickets. If at a point I won't tell my husband again, because my first 2 sons went to university at 17. I will just buy the ticket. I was restless. In fact, I became a Canadian. In fact, some people say, where are you? So when each time I read about Joseph and think somebody's child was sold into slavery at 17, this is a baby. It took 13 years for him to achieve the maturity he needed for greatness. So listen to me. If you do not grow, you will not get that position. And God still loves you. Let's be clear. So if you want an accelerated position, you have to accelerate your growth. And not everybody will have a prison experience or a slavery experience. But you have to then work hard to develop yourself. And don't only learn functionalities, capabilities, character building. How do you contribute and add value without showing off? How do you learn to work in a collaborative manner so that you are not threatening people? Guys, it's important. Because when you are excellent, the first risk you have is your boss being threatened by you. So you need to learn wisdom and how to manage that terrain. You have to navigate it, and effectively too. So the story of Joseph tells us that God knows what he's doing every time. When you read Genesis 37:50, you see the preparedness of Joseph. So nothing that happened to him happened by chance. And imagine if after, and this is what some of you do, we shut down. You've given all, then the promotion comes. I always tell people when I'm counseling, after promotion, if you need to see my calendar, my phone will just be going pra, 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 pra. These disgruntled people. They don't know if me myself I'm disgruntled though. They don't care. Everybody just wants to, and then I start explaining. So I'm just so discouraged. And I say, the danger in this conversation, this dwelling, you're dwelling on this thing. Another appraisal system is already counting. So don't lament. Pick yourself up and start showing they made a mistake. That's the only way to get it. If they pass you over, imagine that Joseph shut down and said, is it not a dream that got me sold? Never in my life will I interpret a dream. If you like, be dreaming every day, me or shame more. Because how did he get sold into slavery? Because he told people his dream. So he could have said, this gift, I'm not using it again. Gift alakoba, I will not interpret anything for anybody. Do you understand? Don't shut down on your gift. Even when it's not as rewarding as you think it. There's a reason God gave you a gift and he wants you to use it. So what Joseph showed throughout the course of his journey was a spirit of excellence. Excellence is not a one-off affair. He always went above and beyond. He was consistent. His competence was undisputable. Tino and I were talking about something, and I said, sometimes as Christians, when we show up in the workplace, we only want to be great to leaders who are on the same faith length with us, But remember what Pharaoh said about Joseph. He said, there is no other man like this in the kingdom. Even the demon, the devil, they will recognize your excellence. That's it. So you do not hide yourself because people may not understand you. You keep showing up, and that's what it did. He was reliable. He always thought out of the box. He went the extra mile, and he was trusted. And then, because you're a woman, there are some things you need to do a bit more. Master the art of being assertive and always read the room. Because of cultural nuances, it's easier for us to offend than the men. I hope you know. I've talked to a taxi driver before, and he said, how dare you talk to me? In 2022, some people still come to your house, you open it and say, where is Oga? Because they just don't want to relate with you. So you need to understand. Make sure your work is visible. Don't commit your career to one boss. Because your boss may love you, but not have a voice. Are you listening to me? So women, we have that thing. I once had a boss who said, Olufunke, I really like you. You are fantastic, but you are not submissive. I said, why should I be submissive to you? Submission in the office. There are different skills you need. You should be respectful. You should be collaborative. You can't go and submit to somebody because he's a man and he's your boss. Let your work show. Not every man can speak for you. Husbands understand submission because the Bible decrees it. But your boss doesn't have to. To him, you may just be timid. So show up yourself. When they give you an opportunity, run with it. They put you on a committee. Deliver. Don't make silly excuses. A lot of women have missed promotion because say, I have my son, my this, my that. Are you the only one with a child? Those are the things that we use to deny ourselves the promotions we deserved. You do all the work, but you don't show up when it matters. Get a support system. The moment that career starts taking off, one part of the money is not for you. It's to support your growth. It's where you get a good nanny. You get a video. Those days, MTN, I'll sit in the office and I'll be watching my nanny with my children. I will go on break. I'll like just sit in the lunchroom and watch them. Get a support system so that your mind will be at rest. I had an auntie, she liked money so much. She was in my village. Nice, neat, fashionable. I transported her to Lagos. Those days, she was my house manager. Those days, we didn't even know what house manager was. Then I had a nanny and a house girl. She said, she used to supervise them for me. It was like having my mother full time because my mom had her own life too. She's a provincial pastor in Redeem. She's all over the place. She doesn't have time to sit with anybody. That my auntie, I used to pay all her children's school fees. She lacked nothing. She would sit with my children until they all went off. She was in my house because I needed comfort so I could run. So when they said the meeting is 7 a.m., I show up. I'm there. So when they are picking the people to grow, when they pick the men, they pick me first. Because I'm there. I'm not afraid of the work. I'm a foot soldier. I will roll my sleeves. I once had an ED who came. When he came, he said, he doesn't know this work I'm doing. He's not sure he likes me. Then he started doing all sorts of tests. I'll be in church on Sunday. I'll see a chat. I'm landing from church. One day said, this girl, you're fantastic. That guy today is my mentor. He was one of my best bosses ever. But he came and said, I don't know. I think you're overhyped. I don't understand what you do. I said, don't worry. He will carry other people's job and give me. I said, Funke, look at this thing for me. Do it for me. This is landing for me. And these were my bosses. Then I'll sit in the meeting when he's surfacing it. They won't know I'm the one that did it. At some point, they even found me out. But it was fine. Show up. Women, stop making excuses that make them think we don't deserve to be in the boardroom. We do. We are brilliant. You know, as a woman, I said something. I said, know your worth and put some tax on it. There is no statistics that says you process less than the other gender. We are all brilliant. And they support us. You know, the lovely thing about men that I see is when they see women who want to show up, they support you. Unlike what we read all over, men support you. Men mentor women more than women do into greatness. And let me even tell you this battle you think you are fighting. If you want to go somewhere, do you fight the people there? Who will open the door for you? 31% in the boardroom. We need that 69%. We are their friend. They will shift for us. So stop using being a woman as an excuse. Find something. You may not be able to put an auntie. You may have somewhere where you and your friend put your kids together and you jointly pay, or you find a good credit. But make sure that you show up and you don't use being a woman an excuse not to be available. Because that is where the men, they win. Honestly, they win. You know, you finish meeting and then they say, oh, they are going to the club. That meeting is not over. They say they are going to the lounge. That meeting is not over. In that lounge, they will not make the decisions that will affect all your lives. But you are not there. You've run home. You've run to the crèche. They say, where are you people going? Let's go. Start socializing. Start networking. Be extremely well behaved. I can't say that enough. Watch your emotions, because emotions is something that has taken women out of leadership for so long. Let's find mentors. And our non-office life, it really matters. Now, organizations want to know what you do outside. Where are you adding value? You work for NGOs. They want to see who you are, your character, your person. So those things, they are very important. And please don't lose them. Forget to give it all back to God. When you win a little, do not start. Some people did not go to where God wanted to take them because they spent too much time relishing the first step. God will first show you small miracle and see how you deal with it. So you became the manager of Potiphar's house. And then God just used the wife to test you, to see how you deal with power, how you deal with access, how you deal with opportunities. And he passed. So make sure, some people, the moment they get their first promotion, they stop going to church. This is my brain, is my expertise. God will remind you how you got there. Don't let God remind you. Don't let God need to remind you. And like I always say, find a job that you love. But if you don't find a job that you love the job you have. Because this is where you are. I don't think Joseph wanted to be a slave. He didn't want to be a houseboy. But he was great at it. That's why Joseph's story is very important. A lot of us are in places we think we are better than. Let your work show that you are bigger than this. Not your grumbling. Not your inactivity. Have an underlying principle. We've talked about that. We have Christ. That's the principle. If you have Christ, you have faith, you have integrity, you have empathy, you can be trusted, you have trust in him. There are a lot of qualities that people write as core values that you've covered just because you're a born-again Christian. They don't need to struggle with you. And recently, a board wanted me, some people wanted me on their board, and they listed the things they wanted. And I asked the person, I said, do they have these things? These people looking for someone with integrity, someone who is a leader in a church, do they have it? Because I see their oga on newspaper. Do they have these things? It still has court cases for corruption. So even the most corrupt people, they are looking for a certain kind of people because they know they can trust you and they can go to bed. And of course, remember to have your personal goals. One thing I need to mention as a roundup is, you do some work today. Where do you want to be? Write it down. Where do you want to be? What do you need to get there? You need to do the work. Is it teaching? Is it certification? Is it learning? Is it knowledge? Is it getting a mentor? Is it getting a sponsor? Not all teachings, even Harvard have courses that you don't need to pay for until you need the certification. Full courses, go to Harvard. You take courses, you will learn. You only pay when you need the certificate. So train yourself, teach yourself, make sure you're available. And I think that nothing will stop you. Remember, we will always put God first. And remember, like Joseph, the journey is not under your control, but your response and your faith is within your control. So thank you very much, church.
Let's put our hands together for Jesus. Thank you, Funke. Isichei. God bless you.